The struggle for inclusion. From their earliest days in America, Presbyterian women have worked on behalf of women, children, racial and ethnic minorities, the poor, the sick, the disabled, immigrants and refugees, and other vulnerable or underserved groups of people. In the process of accompanying others, women in the Presbyterian Church have also struggled for justice for themselves. In the early 1800s, the first Presbyterian women's organizations defied societal and church conventions and, despite numerous restrictions, gained respect, especially from missionaries in the field who requested women's donations and prayers. In 1875, Sarah Foster Hannah spoke before GA, Presbyterian Church in the USA, and received permission to establish a national organization for women. Women in the Presbyterian Church in the U.S. got permission more than 2 decades later to set up a national women's organization. The early 1900s were a time of upheaval and discontent. Women gained power and women lost power, but through it all, women remained dedicated to the church. Louisa Woosley was the first ordained Presbyterian woman in the U.S. She was ordained by the Cumberland Presbyterian Church in 1889 in Kentucky. In the 1930s, the work of Presbyterian women expanded. Peace became a continuing emphasis of Presbyterian women as they continued their faith journey through the 20th century and into the 21st century. In 1946, Tamaki Yumura, the first Japanese civilian allowed into the United States following the war, spoke at a PWO meeting. In the 20th century, Presbyterian women took tough positions on racism and equal rights for women in society and in the church. When the 2 largest Presbyterian denominations in the United States reunited in 1983, the women's groups brought their advances with them. Milestones were achieved one at a time by women in the principal Presbyterian denominations. The United Presbyterian Church of North America appointed a woman as lay evangelist in 1893, then voted to ordain women as deacons in 1906. Catherine Bennett, president of the Women's Board of Home Missions, was the first woman allowed to speak to a General Assembly in the PCUS in 1916. The PCUSA voted to ordain women as deacons in 1922, as elders in 1930, and as ministers of word and sacrament in 1956. In 1964, the PCUS approved the ordination of women as deacons, elders, and ministers. Now, 2 centuries after the first Presbyterian women gathered to pray and donate their hard-earned pennies to the church, we have voice in the church and in the world. Peace and reconciliation were concerns of Presbyterian women before and after reunion. In 1956, Presbyterian women, led by Margaret Shannon, organized the Pacific Fellowship Mission to become agents of reconciliation in a fractured world. This trip spurred the formation of the Asian Church Women's Conference and led to the foundation of Fellowship of the Least Coin. Women exchanged handcrafted peace Bibles at the 1988 Churchwide Gathering as a symbol of a peaceful future together. More recently, PW has worked on the issues of gun violence and racial reconciliation. Presbyterian women from the beginning sought to build an inclusive, caring community of women. In 1988, PW created 4 racial ethnic member-at-large positions on the CCT. In 1993, 2 more were added. In 1997, PW approved a resolution to seek to eradicate racism within the PW organization. Since then, Presbyterian Women has promoted racial reconciliation and cultural humility through its racial ethnic dialogue, a resolution declaring PW an anti-racist organization, the appointment of the Structural Review Task Force, anti-racism facilitator trainings, anti-racism resources, and a Women of Color consultation. In 2008, the Churchwide Coordinating Team approved the Anti-Racism Committee as a working committee. PW issued a statement in 2017 condemning racially motivated violence and urging reconciliation. What does the Lord require of you but to do justice and to love kindness and to walk humbly with your God? Micah chapter 6, verse 8. In 2005, Presbyterian women began sending a delegation to the UN Commission on the Status of Women in New York. There, women have learned about UN development goals, goals that include empowering women and ending hunger and poverty. They have also learned about the International Bill of Rights for Women called CEDAW. At the PW Churchwide Gathering in Orlando, the Justice and Peace Committee organized a protest in front of Publix, urging them to sign on to the Coalition of Immokalee Workers' Fair Food Program. At the Churchwide Gathering in Minneapolis, the committee led a march called PW Stepping Out for Justice and Peace. At this gathering, the JP March will call for healing the 9th Street divide. Mission and justice are intertwined. On a global exchange trip to Eastern Europe, for example, women encountered the extreme poverty and discrimination that the Roma people suffer in many countries. As a result, PW sponsored development opportunities for the Roma in Hungary and has produced devotionals in support of the Roma people. ECPAT, originally End Child Prostitution in Asian Tourism, was begun with the help of a PW named June Ramage Rogers and a 1992 thank-offering grant. ECPAT is firmly established and continuing to grow in strength and effectiveness. ECPAT USA continues to receive support from Presbyterian women, most recently in 2015. Throughout the years, PW has worked for justice and peace through its offering grants as well. For example, in 1988, PW gave $50,000 to establish a transitional residence in Atlanta for women leaving prison. This is mission and advocacy hand in hand. Together, we are more effective. In 2015, PW initiated Together in Action Days, designed to mobilize PW groups for action on a particular topic of concern during a given time period. The first Together in Action Day was held January 11th, 2015, Human Trafficking Awareness Day. In 2016, the day was extended to a week, as women were encouraged to take action against human trafficking during Together in Action Days. In 2017, PW added Together in Action Days around children's literacy in May as a way of supporting PCUSA's Educate a Child initiative. In 2018, Together in Action Days were launched for women's empowerment. These days coincide with the UN Commission on the Status of Women in March. Each October, the nation and the church pay special attention to the issue of violence against women and girls. Resources on the topic of intimate partner violence have been made available by the Presbyterians Against Domestic Violence Network, Faith Trust Institute, Presbyterian Women, and others. Racism and discrimination are prime topics for courageous conversations. For example, Shawnee Presbyterian Church and Harvey Brown Presbyterian Church, both in Louisville, have formed a partnership and sat down together to talk about race and racism. PW has explored a wide range of topics in the past decade through J&P Links, the electronic newsletter of the Justice and Peace Committee. Topics have included human trafficking, water rights, violence against women and children, women's empowerment, Israel-Palestine, and more. Horizons magazine has been an important tool of PW's peace and justice work. Theme issues and articles on JP topics have raised awareness and suggested action. From 1988 through 2004, columns called UN Matters and Washington Watch dealt with peacemaking, public policy, and advocacy issues. In 2004, Horizons began a new column called Working for Justice and Peace. More good work lies ahead. Our struggle is not for our own gain, but in the service of God's creation and as a witness to God's realm.